Thank you for being patient here. We're all kind of a little bit on mushroom time and we're just waiting for a few other people to join here. The okay, next we're up to 24 here. Okay. I expect people to start joining throughout and yeah, is I we really expect this whole thing to snowball pretty quickly here once we start having regular meetings and once people like kind of realize there's stuff to do now. Welcome everyone. My name's Chris Kurtz. I was a part of Decriminalize Nature Ann Arbor. I built our websites back then, and I was on the steering committee when we successfully decriminalized in Ann Arbor. And the city council unanimously passed our resolution making psilocybin the lowest law enforcement priority. There's a ton of other stuff I'm going to talk about coming up. We're going to do a few introductions first for our few board members here. And for this first meeting, we're going to just keep people muted. If you want to ask questions, you can send questions in the chat and you can send them to moderator and he'll go through them. We'll take a look at them and we'll do kind of questions at the end. And the last half an hour, we might unmute people if it's easier. We'll see how it goes. But people filled out a survey and we're going to get through some of that today too. And we've got an agenda to kind of prepare people for the next few months, let people know what we're trying to do, how we're going to do it, and then what to expect kind of after this initial educational and introductory part of the meetings here. So after we decriminalized in 2020, I was kind of making decriminalization my main focus, and we started a statewide movement. It was called Decriminalize Nature Michigan. We were trying to educate cities to kind of go into their local governments like we did in Ann Arbor. And I'll explain some of why that didn't work. I'll explain some of the things that did work in that. We all kind of will going forward here. That kind of was a little bit rocky to start off, you could say. And so in the meantime, I opened a store called MF Shrooms. And when I discovered mushrooms in probably 2015, I was trying to do everything I could to kind of get off the path of addiction. I was in opiate addiction, meth addiction, and living out in Las Vegas doing all types of crazy things. I'm sure we all have kind of stories of why mushrooms have brought us here. When I first tried them, they really the first time they just kind of plucked the addiction out of my brain. They're like, you don't need this anymore. We will be with you now and forever. Even when you aren't on us, you can carry our knowledge and they're kind of like, things will get better if you help people with these and if you make helping people with these your mission. And so since then, I've just decided to spread these to as many people as possible. And the best way to do that is with macro change and kind of changing ideas and culture and the laws in society to help people understand these better and make them more accepting. So open the store in the meantime to kind of be able to help people daily and try to bring people mushrooms and medicine as affordable as possible. But when we're going into these other communities, we're not going as a business owner or a commercial enterprise. We're going as activists and educators that have been previously successful in this. And that's why we're confident that we're going to have some success with it. So it is important that we go into these communities with a certain mindset. It's hard to tell people that they need a store or they need to sell something or they need to have a regulated market when this is all brand new. So we really preach a kind of open, accessible for everyone, less regulation, the better. And we'll get into all of that. But that's really kind of what we're coming here. And there's a lot of stories along the way, and there will be a lot of stories going forward. But really, the time is now to make change, and people are ready to do this more than ever. So we'll get into some of the more details about who we are and what we're doing here, but I'll pass it on to the rest of our group just for a minute here. Elena, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Elena Sims. I came to this work through trying to treat my own depression, also working with lots of folks in the community. I have a master's degree in social work from U of M, a couple decades of working in the community in the mental health and the medical field. So really, I have a passion for this because this is what has helped me and so many folks. I also do work at the store. So just in the past year and a half, we've heard so many different stories from folks coming in and sharing how this plant medicine has really been able to impact them and help them. Um, More background information about me. As I mentioned, I have a master's degree in social work. I'm one of the organizers of the Great Lakes Foragers Gathering, which is about building community, mutual aid, education, and just strengthening our relationship with nature, which is something I'm really passionate about. So I'm really happy to be able to do this work and be a part of this team and also to meet all of you. We've had so many great conversations. In the storefront, people are asking, how do we get this in our communities? And this is the way that we're going to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. That is exactly right, and we're really excited for that. Cecilia, you want to go ahead? Oh,
Uh-oh, are you muted,
you're,
Cecilia?
or turn up your microphone a little bit here. We had you working earlier.
Yeah, we did our best to troubleshoot everything ahead of time, guys, but it's Zoom, so.
You let's see, can you unplug and plug in your mic here? Do you want to until then, do you want to go ahead, Michelle? Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Cecilia. I don't understand technology. I'm a beekeeper. And I came to this work because my husband, who is a combat veteran, Iraq, Afghanistan, wanted to try mushrooms for his PTSD and also to help him cut back a bit on the medical marijuana. And wow. We are also beekeepers. I practice apitherapy. So I do a lot using medicines from the hive to help people with everything from inflammation to infection. And the combination of psilocybin and bee products is just miraculous. So that is my sort of stake in this game. I also have a lot of mental health issues in my family, and it's helped enormously with so many people close to me. I have a sort of work with EMU through the School of Nursing, so I'm continuously doing research into medical conditions and breakthroughs in different forms of therapy because nurses tend to be really interested in alternatives to pharmaceuticals. So I get a lot of information from that job too, and I run a bee school. So if you're interested in beekeeping, come see me at the store where I also work, and we connect you with that. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, hi. I'm Michelle Donaldson, and um, I started doing this work about 3, 4 years ago. I was a part of Michigan Initiative for Community Healing. I joined Decriminalize Nature after Ann Arbor. I helped with the Ferndale decriminalization campaign and also the Ypsilanti decriminalization campaign. And what really kind of brought me into the space of mushrooms was I was a chef for 20 years, and in that profession, addiction is prevalent. And so after a 20-year plus pretty gnarly drinking habit, when I quit, I really I needed a way to work through my own issues with depression, anxiety, shame, guilt, everything that comes along with quitting an addiction, right? And so my options were choose an SSRI or find a way to heal myself. And so I started growing mushrooms and starting experimenting on myself. And I've been sober almost 5 years and, learned from the mushroom that this was a way that I could help my community. And really further work that I do and have done in harm reduction. I have lost over 20 people in my life to the opioid crisis, and those roots in harm reduction and alternative ways of dealing with addiction because of barriers of access to rehabilitation and treatment. It just really propelled me to get into this decriminalization work. I also have experience doing policy work on the federal level. I got a crash course during the pandemic working with the Independent Restaurant Coalition and passing the Restaurant Relief Act, which was a lot. That was really hard to do. And learning how to talk to legislators, lobby, and advocate. So yeah, I just here to help us all heal our own communities. Yeah.
Thank you. That's amazing. Okay, I honestly wanted all of y'all to just keep talking. Yeah, these help us. These have all helped everyone. I imagine that is why most people are here, because they've at least encountered someone that has been helped by them or been helped themselves. And that is really so. We are so Decriminalize Psilocybin Michigan. Previously in Ann Arbor and some of these other places, we've this is Diana. She's kind of my counterpart. All right, can you maybe go outside, baby? So in the past, we've focused on all natural psychedelics. So and that has been we've brought let me see. There's kind of a couple points to the strategy, and most of it is direct education. Here, let me shut this door. So most of the reason we have success is because the community is involved in this, and people understand that they can grow their own and we can heal each other, and we don't need regulation necessarily to tell us how to use this stuff, and who can use it and how much we can use. So really we educate people here first, and then we take that education and we bring it directly into local governments, like our local city councils usually, or sometimes our county commissioners. And this is something that connects people on both sides of the aisle. So in the past, natural psychedelics have been kind of the focus, but we've kind of discovered it is harder to make a wall of change kind of all at once than compared to a sphere of change. And psilocybin is one of the most palatable substances out there. It's one of the most low risk. It's one of the most effective in helping people in so many different ways. It's nearly a one size fits all for mental and physical health. It's not quite, there's nuance to that. Some people don't need a big dose. Some people need a very, very tiny dose. And we have a lot of resources on our website. We'll kind of go through some of that today too. But we're going to explain how you can talk to people about this and what this is in very simple terms, what this medicine is, the history behind it, and there can be immense healing to be had with taking big doses of this stuff, but everyone has a different brain chemistry, and not everyone needs a big dose. Some people need small change and incrementally at a time, and so there's microdosing too. And so really, there is such a massive spectrum of how this can help people and the way that people use these, and there's still so much to be discovered. So keep sending in some questions. We will try to kind of touch on everything and turn over every stone as we go, but there might be stuff we kind of gloss over at first and we come back to. We're going to be covering more things in greater detail in future meetings. So this is why we kind of decided to take the full angle of just decriminalizing psilocybin. There's the most research out there, and there's already been a couple senators, a couple members of the House that have introduced bills the last couple of years. It is something that connects both sides of the aisle. And that's a really kind of an important thing we have to keep in mind, that this is for everyone. And there's always an angle to educate people. So sometimes it's addiction, sometimes it's PTSD, sometimes it's end of life relief. And the important thing is that this connects people. And the reason we are starting this group right now is I've had kind of this large change in mind for a long time, but now is the most important time, honestly, than ever. It's more important time than ever. Compared to previous years. We just went to a conference hosted by Drug Policy Alliance, and it's called Reform, and it's about drug reform, but a lot of it was about this coming authoritarianism that's sweeping the nation right now. And so we are going to talk in frank terms about that, where we have to be careful of language we use that does not divide people, because we have to be here for each other. We have to team up with each other, no matter who we are, and we have to teach each other how to live the right way. So, but right now, these ideas, they're growing everywhere, but in the places they're allowed, there's only a few of those. So that the pendulum is kind of ever swinging, and it can get swallowed up. Like this idea can get swallowed back up. And this is not a permanent privilege that we have here where it's protected. So that's why it's important to spread these ideas and again, teach people how to teach people this stuff. So let's see. Don't want to go into too much here. Really, the reason why we are also doing this is because we have some experience in success previously, and we know a formula that works. We first adopted this formula from Decrim Nature, the national organization, and they were successful in decriminalizing entheogens, which is a term for natural psychedelics, in UC Berkeley, Santa Cruz. And then they kind of started this national movement, and there became Decriminalize Nature, all these other cities. We'll go into that a little bit in the future here too. But so people have been asking for something like this. People want somewhere to go to make change. And so we're gonna finally give that to people, and we're basically gonna be a conduit of information where people from around the state can come and gather and start their local groups that we will help facilitate. Some people have these groups already kind of formed, and they're like, I know Kalamazoo has had some great progress. Lansing, Jackson is like nearly there. And in some of these places, we might get close to decriminalizing more than psilocybin, but our goal is to give people a real voice, and that means all types of people. And so, yeah, really, this is just kind of the beginning to make greater change, is the idea. Okay. Do you want to go, Elena? Do you want to go into any other work that you've done with with stuff in the past, or are we past intros here?
We can move on. I know Michelle had a little bit of a presentation, some information about why decrim, just more background information.
Yeah, go for it. Michelle, are you ready here?
Yeah, give me just a second. I'm going to share my screen. And, I know some of us in this space fully understand policy terminology, the difference between decriminalization, legalization, medicalization, recreational, all of that, but a lot of us don't. And just as kind of a rule of thumb, just because you know about it doesn't mean that everybody else does. And so even if we kind of have to continuously have education about things that are kind of commonplace to us, I just want to, kind of hold some space and have some grace for that. So just a real quick presentation on the difference of those terms and why we're focusing on decriminalization. So give me just a second here.
There's just so there's not some silence here.
That's all right. Chris, you had asked me to add more to my bio. So just in my course of work as a social worker, I do psychedelic assisted therapy. So that's just one of the ways that I'm utilizing this plant medicine. So, all right, there you are, Michelle.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see you.
Hello. Okay, I think you can see my screen now. Yeah, good.
Yeah, and I can still see myself. So I don't know if you can minimize the Zoom and just show the PowerPoint.
Let me see here. Oh, now it's all messed up. Um,
It's okay, I can be in the corner there.
yeah, how do I get that out of there? Sorry, everybody. All right, well,
It works with Chris in the corner.
okay.
No, not
Okay.
not me. What the hell?
I'll hold space here, like you mentioned.
Okay, so
Make a
just
neutral expression.
we're defining policy terminology here. Just real quick, what we're going to go through. And a lot of the materials that we share will definitely be accessible to everybody, because it is important to understand the differences here. So decriminalization versus legalization. We're not going to go into the stigma of decrim all today. That's definitely a much deeper topic. Recreational versus medical, regulated versus unregulated. So what we are advocating for is decriminalization. And you can see the core idea is that decriminalization removes or reduces criminal penalties. And that is essentially immediate. And this is only in the space of not like non-regulated personal use. There's nothing here that is any sort of commercialization model. So it focuses on the citizen model of grow, gather, gift. And essentially the mechanism is making psilocybin offenses the lowest law enforcement priority and diverting resources away from punitive measures. So what that means is not putting any sort of monetary or manpower behind prosecuting or arresting, investigating crimes having to do with psilocybin. Now, for understanding, it's very different if you have a grow tent in your basement versus 2,000 square feet and growing 2,000 square feet of mushrooms. Obviously, that is still within the realm of criminalization. But most importantly, this keeps citizens out of jail. And with the prison industrial complex, the history of marginalized communities ending up in prison for small drug offenses, decriminalization is one of the most rapid tools that we have to prohibit that from happening. It does not protect the sale, distribution, or production of psilocybin, and it focuses on harm reduction and our individual liberty as opposed to commercialization. Legalization, on the other hand, the core idea there is more like what you see in the cannabis market. So it creates a legal and regulated market for adult access. This removes the majority of criminal penalties. It is supposed to release people from prison, but we don't see that on a mass scale, and that's a whole nother conversation. But it removes those penalties for possession, use, and cultivation within the framework of the policy, however that's written. It historically includes licensed commercial markets, which builds the framework for retail, cultivation licensing, mandatory testing, taxes, age restrictions, etc. It is politically challenging. It's much harder to pass legalization, and it's yet to be implemented in any sort of US model in regards to psilocybin or entheogens at large. It does involve structured, monitored, monetized, taxed, and large amounts of bureaucracy. It's generally how alcohol is regulated, if that helps give context. Recreational, the core idea there is allowing for adult use regardless of purpose, contained within a regulated commercial market. So that ties in with that legalization piece. It sets the market parameters through licensing for cultivation and sell, for manufacturing, and it sets regulatory parameters that include safety standards like testing, labeling, potency limits, packaging criteria, advertising, those sorts of things. It also utilizes a tax structure that generally offsets public health, education, local government budgetary needs. And it tends to encourage corporate consolidation and limit monetary gain for mom and pop growers and providers. We've seen that in every recreational model across the United States. And we can look at cannabis for that. Cannabis and mushrooms, we should generally not equate, but we know that when we're looking at these terminologies for the different types of markets and policy advocacy, that cannabis we can kind of glean from. The medical model, the core idea there is that it's healthcare based, diagnosis driven, and professionally supervised. I have issue with this for 10,000 reasons, but it requires professional and bureaucratic oversight involving multiple government agencies. We sat in on a panel last week with policy advocates and writers from Oregon and Colorado, comparing and contrasting the different models that they have, and not to get too deep into the woods. But one of the biggest things that Elena and I heard was how many agencies it takes to get access to psilocybin in Oregon. It is so prohibitive. It just it blocks access for the majority of citizens. It generally involves service centers, licensed medical professionals. These are your points of access. Not utilizing these points of access puts you in the framework of criminalization. And so you see a lot of people still, being persecuted, prosecuted, handed punitive measures for utilizing psilocybin within medical frameworks. It's historically cost prohibitive. If you ever look at some of these service centers in Oregon, I couldn't afford to utilize that. I don't know many people who could. And so that creates a barrier to the individual citizen to access these medicines that we know we all need. It does focus on patient monitoring, safety protocols, and treatment outcomes. So a lot of times you will see legislation, policy will change if certain outcomes aren't met that are arbitrarily put in place. And so, if you're not seeing abundance of mental health outcomes based on your medical model, most of the time that legislation will be changed. It does open pathways for insurance companies to monetize and also data integration into existing healthcare systems, which, as we see, our data is being centralized within the federal government. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want my psilocybin use integrated into the healthcare system. It does keep criminalization in place for personal use and cultivation, which is my number one reason that it is problematic. The difference between regulated and unregulated, the core idea with regulation is that it's legal, licensed, and monitored for safety. This generally includes things we've discussed, like product safety standards, testing, potency limits, labeling, licensing, age protections, that tax revenue structure, quote unquote, consumer transparency, workplace protections, and ideally mitigates contamination and recalls. The unregulated model, which is what we're advocating for, the core idea there exists outside of a legal and bureaucratic oversight. It's people-centered, and it is essentially grow, gather, gift. It does not have protocols for standardized testing, potency varies, and it relies on trust and community-imposed standards. There still is the risk of punitive measures from enforcement, just kind of based on the local laws, which is where you live, which is, why we want to get more decriminalization in as many municipalities as possible. And there is no recourse for harmful or fraudulent products. However, access is open to all, regardless of reason of use, but still can carry punitive responses. And it does give broader access to marginalized communities who would be left out of the access by regular markets, specifically the medical model, and other regulated models. No age protections, and it does require a degree of secrecy and kind of operating in gray areas. But so far we've seen historically that areas in Michigan that have decriminalized, we haven't seen much punitive action towards the grow, gather, gift model. And so, why does decrim matter and why should it be prioritized? Like I mentioned in the beginning, it immediately stops criminalization of personal use and cultivation without having to change the law. It reduces harm from prohibition and starts to soften the stigma of use just by conversation. It is the most direct path to ending criminal penalties without waiting for the regulatory framework to be built and the other models that we discussed. And so I'll just leave you with this thought that people deserve relief from criminalization for healing themselves today, not years from now, as we see and know that it takes government models and bureaucratic models to put in place. So hopefully that helps you kind of better understand what we're talking about and what we're working with here, and how to understand policy a little bit better.
Thank you so much, Michelle. That was amazing. That was very thorough and very important. And I think we'll continue to kind of cover definitions and touch on benefits and the negatives of other models, and when things can be still regulated in kind of a non-regulated market, or regulated in the legal market, and it can be unregulated in a legal market. There can be still black markets where there is medicalization going on too. So there's a lot of nuance, and that will kind of bring me into a little bit of the history of what we accomplished in Ann Arbor. And I'll go through a little bit of the rest of the state and the success we've had. I know some of the other folks have maybe some insight on that too. This is the important part about how we were successful, and then what will be what will work well in other places and new places. So in Ann Arbor, we took the approach of direct education, and we started this group in 2018, in summer of 2018, and there were like 5 of us in the room or something. Like there was there's probably like maybe 15 people total, I guess, including the presenters. And then the next meeting, it was a little bit bigger. The next meeting is a little bit bigger. So there were a few approaches that were kind of put out there, and there are a few approaches that we may have to take going forward, just depending on which place, which municipalities and which regions are palatable to which approaches. So in Ann Arbor, we formed a group. We said we are here in the community. We went directly into city council, and we took the approach of introducing ourselves. Some people already had direct relationships with city council members. We did a full education campaign where to every city council member and the mayor's desk, we'd send an influential letter from someone that had been helped by this, a video testimonial from someone in the community that was behind this movement, and a scientific study. And the influential letters can come from anyone from scientists to politicians to athletes to mothers it can be really anyone that can make an impact. And when we kind of send out a campaign consistently usually it's like about every 2 weeks. You don't want to overwhelm people or have them say, this is coming in again. But you make your presence felt, and you make sure that you're taken seriously. And again, there's always an angle of education. So in Ann Arbor, it was kind of the first place we decided to approach because it's a special place. It's this kind of crossroads of medicine, technology, and hippieism. And there's just a lot of history here with hash bash and civil rights. And They were kind of the ones we decided were going to be easily approachable. So, or easiest. Anne Bannister is actually, so there was a few city council members that were crucial in this. And once we kind of familiarized ourselves with them and we sent them all these studies of end of life benefits and addiction benefits and mental health benefits, they reached out to us and said, we have had experience with this too. And we believe this would be good for our community. And one of the city council members is Anne Bannister. She's here tonight. I'm gonna give her a chance to say a few words here about how things were in Ann Arbor. And Jeff Hayner was another one. They both co-sponsored this and brought it to council, and then we were able to show up in person and talk about this. And basically then through education, and this happened in like let's see, it was fall 2020 when we were successful. So it was a couple of years of fundraising and reaching out to people and growing our movement. And even the kind of in the end, the right-leaning city councilwoman that was like a designated Republican, she was the one that was holding out basically on the vote. And then when it came time to vote, she actually did vote in our favor. Because she finally kind of the right piece of education made it in front of her. And so really like you just have to take a very like soft educational approach, and this thing is really palatable for almost everyone. In Ann Arbor, our team at first, we wanted to bring out a ballot initiative. And with that, you have to kind of pay they wanted to pay a campaign director and kind of make a big like splash that we're here. But then that would take away a lot of the time and resources for actual action. So that's why we followed the national model. It was because they were just direct and to the point, and with ballot initiatives, they're extremely expensive. You need to get hundreds of thousands of signatures for the state. For the city, it's a little easier, but it's still an insane amount of resources. We were very lucky that Ann Arbor City Council did decide to help us with this because it became COVID, and there's no way we have been able to get signatures in the time frame that is required. So that is a way, like some of these places Detroit, they had a ballot initiative and the people were able to vote on it. So that was an amazing thing that happened. And in that case, I believe their city council, but correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but their city council, I think, put it on the ballot for people to vote on, I believe. Unless I don't think they did a campaign of signatures. The Hazel Park also, their city council passed. Ferndale, their city council passed, and Ypsilanti, their city council passed. And then after Ann Arbor City Council, the Washtenaw County prosecutor, Ellie Savitt, came out and extended protections for the entire county of Washtenaw. So we do have support here, and this is why we feel this a good place to kind of start this off. But that we really want to grow this, and we're at, and in his words, it's decriminalized in the biggest cities in the state right now. Some of it's verbally decriminalized in Grand Rapids. Their city council said we agree to do this, but we will not agree to do it in writing. So they like kind of adjusted their kind of promise at the very end. They decided they're not going to do this. But he's like, we need to connect this. We need to connect the entire state to these cities. And he's running for state attorney general. So hopefully we'll have people that support this in higher places. That's we're hopeful here. And if you're able to speak, then let me put you on here. Let's see. Moderator, would you like to unmute Anne Bannister and just you can say a few words. You don't have to do too much, but please, if you want to just mention any of the history or what worked and what didn't, then go ahead.
Yes. Well, Chris, you said a lot of the good things. Yeah, I served on Ann Arbor City Council for 3 years from 2017 through 2020. And so it was in late 2019 that the decriminalization Ann Arbor that was a member of had a symposium at University of Michigan Rackham for social workers. And my friend was a social worker, and they came back all ecstatic about the potential for psilocybin in therapy. So it was on my radar there late in 2019. So when Chris Kurtz and the team started to send city council those educational letters and from scientists and John Hopkins University and veterans and all these credible letters started to come into city council in hard copy, it just, as Chris mentioned, just the right interval. I noticed it because I had also been an annual Hash Bash attendee since 1983. So when this started to come about in 2019 and 2020, it was a natural fit. And so, and as Chris mentioned, we ended up 11 members of the council passed it unanimously. And it was an interesting a bunch of values and bipartisanship, but again, it was just a good idea. And the since we talk a lot about mental health and cognitive liberty and religious freedoms, and it just all made sense to the Ann Arbor City Council based on the educational that was provided. Zoom actually helped us. COVID helped us because this way at the city council meetings, we could have experts from California or anywhere else Zoom into our meeting. You didn't have to be in Ann Arbor City Hall in person anymore. So that even added to our credibility and our references. So, and then since then, U of M Psychedelic Center has taken off, and other universities around the country, and now we have the Entheo Fest every September, and last year, Dr. George Mashore, the director of the U of M Psychedelic Center, was the keynote address. And so that really, for all the holdouts that still are skeptical or have a stigma about why would anyone want to work on their brain and their mind, when you've got universities and all these other scientists interested in working on it, it's a good idea whose time has come. And nowadays, there's also the SAPS, Students Association for Psychedelic Studies. They meet a couple times a month, and so I shop at Torn and Frayed. Cecilia, I eat your delicious honey and the chocolates. And then I just also, so I recognize several of you and look forward to seeing you at this meeting with Chris, but also, at the SAPS meetings. And so my role is sort of helping any way I can, like how to approach city councils and political elected officials. I can reassure them that it's been nothing but a wonderful experience, and it's for me, and it's actually been my biggest claim to fame from all 3 years on council, and all the important things about water and police and zoning. It was the decriminalization of the plant medicines that has the biggest impact, not only for me, but for a lot of other people. So I'm happy to have that claim to fame and try to help any way I can.
Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you, Anne.
For talking. I really appreciate you staying a little bit, and thank you. We really appreciate your continued support. It is going to be invaluable going into these other communities, and it is going to really take all types of people. They're like everyone knows someone, and so we're going to be able to build pretty quickly here. And thank you for touching on Entheo Fest also. That was kind of our yearly celebration in Ann Arbor for decriminalization, and it kind of kicked off pretty quick, and then again, our DNMI group kind of fizzled for reasons we'll go in when we'll go into when we talk a little bit more about strategy, about just cohesiveness of groups. I'll figure that one out. But at TheoFest, we were able to very quickly, other states joined in this movement, and there was a decriminalized Columbus, there was a decriminalized Madison, there's a decriminalized Nature in almost every state, and there still is, and a lot of those have had awesome success. So we plan on growing this with pretty. I know there's only a few tens of people in the meeting right now. There's a few hundred people already signed up for this mailing list, and not everyone can make meetings at this time. So these are going to be recorded, and a lot of people are going to review these, and we'll snowball pretty quick, and this movement will grow. And so people will be able to, the goal is really to have people have decriminalized psilocybin chapters in their city, but organizations, and where they are kind of self-governed, and people, y'all are the ones doing this, and we can help you with materials. We'll have materials and media that can be memed out that you can just change the wording on, or the city on. We'll have a depot of testimonials that people will be able to use. And the next meeting will be teaching people, or next couple will, how to kind of film these testimonials, and we will edit them a little bit, add our organization name, maybe add a secret, and then, but the blank canvas will be there to be reused for other cities. So we'll be able to take a lot of these awesome materials and use them in the influential letters, and then take again the advice from Anne, and we'll continue to have these events. And there's other meetings too, like you point out, there's student groups in other cities. There's all types of organizations to get involved with. There's expungement groups that help people get things off their record. There's groups getting people out of jail for things that have been decriminalized and legalized. So Michelle, you said a ton of good stuff about decriminalization. And that is the lowest law enforcement priority is kind of the focus on that, and putting no funds towards arresting people. And then that also lets police look at this in a way different view too. Like you said, it lowers the stigma, and that's from people in the community judging them, but it's also from the police. Do you want to go into it all about Ferndale and Hazel Park in Detroit, before we kind of move on to beyond the history here?
Yeah, sure. I think it's for Ferndale. I live in Ferndale. I think we're very fortunate and lucky that we have a very empathetic, for lack of a better term, forward-thinking sheriff here, who is very open to protecting his community in alternative ways outside of just punitive measures. And so that's really helpful. But there was, just like with Ann Arbor, a ton of education, a lot of advocacy, and I can't speak for Hazel Park, but for Ypsilanti and Ferndale, it was a lot of people showing up that don't live in Ferndale, that don't live in Ypsilanti, and also giving their testimonials, sending emails, sending letters, calling in via Zoom, and just taking up that time and space, right? Because if you have 2 hours of people testifying about how these medicines have helped them and the ripple effects of the positive outcomes in their life, city council folk, legislators, they like to hear that. They like to work on that. It motivates them. I know we're all bombarded with, the evils of money in politics, but this is a side of it too. And it does work. With Ypsilanti was a little harder than Ferndale. Ferndale, we're very progressive. We're a little funky, maybe kind of in the same vein as Ann Arbor, but Ypsilanti is a little different. And it took more city council meetings. It took more convincing. It took more behind the scenes work. of talking to the sheriff's office, talking to the prosecutors. Like it took more legwork. So I don't think we can look at any one of these communities that has made it across the finish line and say, yeah, that's the winning formula. I think we have tools that we have seen proof of concept with, but we have to look at these municipalities as individuals, or individuals, and be able to recognize and utilize what works, and also kind of shift and mold to what needs to work in that community. And that could be everything from the terminology you use to the people who show up and advocate. There's so many ways to message and make things effective. And I think you had a really good example of, there was some study or some advocacy that made the one person on Ann Arbor change their mind, because however that was said or however it was communicated, that resonated with them. And so I don't know if that's helpful. I don't know if that's what you were asking. But and then the other thing I would say is, yes, Detroit was a ballot initiative. It was citizen led, but because it was just a city ballot initiative, the hurdles aren't as monumental as a state ballot initiative. So just to kind of make that distinction for everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much for clarifying that. Yeah, that entails raising money, and either volunteers go around and collect signatures in the community, or you can pay companies will do it for you, and it comes out to like $4 a signature. So if you need thousands of signatures, it can get pretty expensive if you don't have the help. Okay. Also, we were.
I'm sorry, Chris,
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing on the ballot side of things? I think before there's really a need for that discussion, or that discussion ever happens again, as far as a statewide ballot initiative for Michigan, there's so much legwork of education that has to be done before we would ever cross the threshold of the amount of signatures that we would need. Or in conversations with Governor Whitmer, she signaled that she would never even be interested in any sort of policy initiatives until she saw Macomb County in the mix. So when we talk about education as a whole, we really have to kind of get out of these silos and start moving towards areas that maybe make us uncomfortable, or we wouldn't necessarily think that's where I'm going to go and educate about this. So sorry.
Yeah, thank you. That was also pertinent. It is also, some of these communities, it's hard to go in and say, you guys need ayahuasca in your community, or you need Ibogaine in your community. And psilocybin, again, is just, there's just more out there on it, so it can be easier to educate people. We do want to save some time for questions here. We might run a little bit over the first hour kind of speaking that we were going to do. We might, but we will get to questions here still.
I wanted to kind of sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say,
there was a question that came up in the group chat that just said, what steps can we take to move this forward in counties outside Washtenaw? So I just wanted, and a lot of this has been covered, but just concretely, the education portion that we've been talking about, just bringing the education to elected officials, but also within communities, but also being able to support other communities. Like, for example, I was chatting with some folks who were in Flint, who were consistently showing up at city council meetings, but they were the only two people there. So if we can turn and say, hey, this community as a critical juncture, and other people show up and be present to really support each other. We kind of also are planning on having on the website an interactive tracking map of all the different legislative efforts and the different groups that are popping up, not just in Michigan, but around the country, so we can really support each other as much as possible. We also kind of want the website to be kind of a clearinghouse of these tools that we've been talking about. I know Chris and Michelle mentioned letter templates, conversation starters, talking points, printable items, videos, just these educational materials that we can have like open source available for anybody who wants to do this work, because we don't really need to recreate the wheel. We just need to democratize the educational sources that we've had so far.
Yeah, thank you. There's also for like direct action right now. There's no other decriminalized psilocybin groups that have really started. So the people that are here, we'll kind of the next meeting, we'll be able to place people, like kind of introduce people that are similar areas or similar regions. There are decriminalized nature groups. There's Michigan Psychedelic Society groups, but those are a little bit more, that latter one is a little more educational than it is working in decrim. The decrim nature groups, we're in touch with a few of them. And if anyone wants to get in touch and say, hey, I'm in this region, put me in touch with someone, then write to our support at decriminalizepsilocybinmi.com email. It's at the bottom of our website. And just let us know, hey, I'm in this area. And we can, if you want to be in touch with a decrim nature group, we can put you in touch with them. We hope that they'll also show up here. There's some people are like, they want to focus on decriminalizing all. They also, this is our first meeting. So I think once people know that we are here showing up and we're here to stay, they will, these other groups and such will make themselves more available for people to find them. Right now, there's been kind of a dormancy with other groups, even decrim nature groups. And there's not a lot of action going on. So just from people kind of waking up and saying like, hey, I'm here, that lets someone else say, hey, I'm also here. And then people will find their groups pretty quickly. Do you want to, I know we touched on a lot of our goals. Do you want to go over any more of them, Elena?
Well, I know we talked a lot about some of the things that we said specifically and concretely. I mean, really, hopefully the website will be a place for folks to be able to refer others to get education, but also that all y'all, as you begin to organize in your local communities, will be able to come back to and get some of those resources and support too.
Yeah. There'll be a few things. There'll be again materials, but there'll be this interactive map also that will kind of let people be kept up to date. It will have our movement on there, but it will also have all of the decriminalized nature movements, where things are decriminalized around the country, where there has been attempted legislation, where there's been failed, where they've decriminalized adult nature, where there's universities doing studies. So we're very excited to bring that to people. Cecilia, do you want to let people know kind of what they can do?
Absolutely. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. And I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So this is really quick. Basically, I'm sort of following up on everything that was just said, because if you're wondering what you can do right now, obviously it's all about making personal connections, because DPMI is an educational campaign. And you are already completely prepared to do the most important work in your role as an authority. You just need to make personal connections and talk about your story. And whatever your connection is to the many goals of DPMI, of decriminalization, maybe you're interested in public education policy reform. Some of you are more interested in plant medicines and reducing the burden on the judicial system. Whatever your connection is, really follow it and jump down those rabbit holes, because you do not need to be an expert to make a difference. Your experience is your authority. And the more that you can explore your interests and build a toolbox full of resources that resonate with why you have a stake in this game, the more confident and more persuasive you're going to be. So I guess what I want to emphasize is be confident. Tell your story. If you're comfortable, share the stories of others who've had success with psilocybin. if that's comfortable for you. But do remember, of course, we speak to different groups differently. So you might want to frame how you shape your language and how you tell that story, depending on the shared values you have with whomever you are talking to. So, when you're talking to parents and families, that's probably going to be different than when you're talking to to faith and community leaders. And how you tell your story and the sorts of resources you're going to use to support your argument will depend on those, again, shared values. My connection is very much with mental health. My husband uses the psilocybin, for example, as I said, for his PTSD. My daughter got off her Adderall for her ADHD. I microdose for anxiety, as does my best friend. My brother helps with his bipolar therapy with psilocybin. So a lot of my resources come from the VA and from the growing amount of information on microdosing. I don't know if you know that 8 million Americans reported microdosing regularly in 2023 in a national survey. So you can only imagine how large that is now. So those are some of the resources I use. If you really reflect on what your connection is before you reach out to try to connect with others, you'll have those resources in your toolbox ready at hand, whether they're screenshots on your phone that you can share with Aunt Betty at the Thanksgiving table, or something that you can connect with later. Of course, we keep saying, look at our website. It's amazing. We have lots of resources, which are great places to start. They're guides on how to talk to, say, city council. There are also links to other organizations, and I really encourage you, if you have links that you think we should include on our website, this is going to be a growing library of resources for anybody who visits the website to explore. So this is just the beginning. And the more you can contribute to this, the more wealth of information we'll be able to share at a click. So I guess my main point is, this is going to be a positive experience. We don't want you to burn out. We want you to really feel empowered from your experience and the drive that you have because of the stakes that you have in this particular campaign and the decriminalization movement. We have some tips on the website. It's great to ask questions and really listen before sharing ideas with people, especially if they're unfamiliar with decriminalization or even with plant medicines like psilocybin, and find that common ground with them before you start to talk about the movement or your particular experience. But I guess I really want to emphasize, if things go sideways with Aunt Betty at the Thanksgiving table, step back. Do not stress. This is not on you. Send her a screenshot later on. Just feel strong, positive vibes about what you're doing, and avoid burning out. You are not alone. You have a huge community behind you, and use us, use the resource. So that is my encouragement to you. Turning it
Well,
back over to y'all.
thank you. Again, I just want to keep listening to y'all. Yeah, there you like eventually Aunt Betty might come around.
That's right.
Like when I was helping people with mushrooms, they kind of before I really started things off, people would come and visit my house, and grandma would be in the back seat, and then the next time grandma was coming for her own microdoses. And now there's like teachers that take it and they're like, we don't like the trip, but when we microdose, it makes us not hate the bad kids. And I'm always like, that's way TMI, but that is like, it can be used for so many different things. There's always an approach you can take, and you can always kind of make it softer if you feel like people are like mushrooms. But now more than ever, people are hearing about them, and people have, heard about them. If they're older, they've heard about them back when they were younger. And they also will hear about them, on television now and radio and newspapers. And so let's see. Okay. We're getting kind of into a slightly kind of end of meeting time period. If anyone has more questions, feel free to send them. Another comment we had / question is here, I'll paraphrase this a little bit, but someone said that it's important to delineate between psilocybin as a medicine and the freedom to choose what plants we choose to eat for any reason at all. The purpose behind that is soon, based on a very large VA study, psilocybin will be created by pharmaceutical companies and prescribed by doctors. This will leave people like us under the authoritarian control of the pharmaceutical industrial complex. This fight is for the freedom to choose organic versus synthetic. And I could not agree more. As we go forward into this, we're going to be seeing, like, again, we don't even know everything that psilocybin can be used for in a beneficial way, and we haven't seen every medium that it can be changed into. And so we'll keep making discoveries on that. But as they do, there's going to be people that are trying to patent certain things or restrict certain things because it's a way to make money. And that is the kind of the main reason why people have suddenly said, oh, we need to get this going now. Now that there's going to be a way to potentially control this and restrict it and make money on it, then there might be that attempt. And we found with synthetic psilocybin and with like extracts also that it has the similar experience, but a lot of the actual whole mushroom is it's usually like you can create it to be organic and comes from nature, but it also has this kind of full spectrum of other tryptamines and compounds and that are all kind of added into there. Other than just psilocybin, psilocin, serotonin, there's baeocystin, there's these kind of common ones, but there's beginning to be more comprehensive testing and people kind of start to deduce this mushroom has this in it. This is why it gives you more visuals. This mushroom has this. This is why it gives you a heavier body buzz. And this is why there's a compound that makes them turn blue. And so some of them have more of that than others. And some of that compound reacts with something different sometimes. And that's why there's still so much to discover about these. But as they do that, they're going to try to make more restrictions, or they're going to say that this version is not okay. And that's why it's important that we continue to promote people to grow their own and to be able to pick their own and to just give them to people. And we didn't create a limit when we started the Ann Arbor resolution. When we wrote that, a resolution is like a legal document that you bring in, and then it has all the laws on it. It has what's allowed, what gets changed, and then city council can amend it. They'll give it back to you. When we first started that, there's the fear that like therapists would need to have as much as they could on hand, that they shouldn't be penalized or be rated if they have more than like a half ounce on them or something. So that's why it's important to have no criminal penalties for amounts as well. And they're kind of, as we go, we'll start to get more people in this, and we'll have some meetings where people are doing introductions and people are sharing about themselves, and especially some of the leaders that step up in their areas. And it's really, there will be all types of people here. There's therapists that practice this with all types of therapy. There's growers that have been brought here. There's people who have just tried this medicinally and are inspired to help other people with it. And so there's like, everyone is in really good company here. When this kind of full spectrum mushroom, or the kind of the natural one being full spectrum, is important because of some of the other healing benefits in some of this stuff. And so that's just a great point to bring up the importance of that. And as we there's some of this is we're going to have to kind of let go of this stuff. As we bring this to city councils, they might say, hey, we want to do this way, and we're going to actually take this off your hands, and we're going to do what we want to do with this, or we're going to open up legalization or something like that. So there is that to consider, but we hope with education that will win people's hearts, and that will change their minds. And in the end, more people are getting mushrooms. So there's I'll let someone else also talk and also if you want to touch more about this too, but there's a House bill right now by a House member, Mike McFall, and it started off just veterans would be able to get psilocybin with a PTSD diagnosis. Now it's been changed to anyone with a PTSD diagnosis. They have like 2 ounces of mushrooms. So that has restrictions, and in the end, you hope that it doesn't get into place and then it leads to more restrictions. And you hope instead it opens things up. But in the end, more people are getting mushrooms. And so that is allowing more people to heal in the end. And so those are allies that we want to make. Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of support from politicians, and we have a lot of commitments for people that want to use their voice. And so there's kind of already a lot of people that are standing beside us. But does anyone want to follow up on any of the stuff I'm touching on also?
The comment that you made from the chat is resonating with me. I think that this is about the anti-commodification of nature and trusting people to be in charge of their own healing. Those are our kind of overriding principles as we approach this. Once again, each community is going to kind of decide how they want to respond, what kinds of systems they want to develop. It might be a patchwork that looks differently, but we really want to empower folks to understand the needs of their community and respond to them in a way that feels supportive. Do we have any questions from anyone? There's a couple that were typed here that I think we've covered. Anybody want to have anything that they want to say?
I just want to add real quick something that we have access to now that we didn't when Ann Arbor was doing this work, Ferndale was doing this work, is that we have 5 municipalities and a county to draw data from, to poll our police departments, to poll our first responders, to poll our city council members and say, how has this affected this community? And we can take that data and centralize it and use it to help in these efforts with other communities by showing proof of concept. And so I think that's a huge untapped resource that I'm really excited to get into the mix and get that work done and make those tools available to anybody else who's ready to jump in and do the work. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. That's a great point on polling. There are Senator Jeff Irwin. He is also a big proponent of decriminalizing plant medicines, and he speaks at a lot of events for the psychedelic events and decrim events. And he's very outspoken. When the U of M tried to put extra kind of security to check people's bags and kind of harass people at the entrance of Entheo Fest, during his speech, he called them out and he's like, these are illegal searches and they're picking on people that look a certain way here, and this is the type of thing that shouldn't be allowed. So there are strong people that want to speak out for us. And he brought a bill to committee, and they started a committee to review it. They created a committee. They came back to us. They couldn't get people to really commit for sponsors because they came back and said, we need polling numbers for the state for these areas that don't have decriminalization. We kind of need to see that this is what people want and that you're not just kind of a splinter group here. So that is also going to be a big part of what we're doing, is getting real numbers and in the places that have this done and the places that don't, and be able to show local governments that this is what your people want. And that will also be a tool that people can use. Yeah. Do people have, like, anyone that is in this meeting, just do a hand raise and we can call on you, or you can type more. We understand there's a lot of info to take in here, and like we mentioned, these will be recorded and put online for people to review and rewatch. So you can parse through this information. In future meetings, it will be more than just introductory. It'll be informational, but it'll be actionable information. And so, yeah, let me just take a moment to see here. Okay. Okay. In future meetings here, we are going to be basically the next couple meetings, we will be organizing people into their groups. Tentatively, there's going to be some regional groups, there's going to be some countywide groups, there's going to be some city groups. And you might choose to be part of one or another. There will be opportunities to be, so in the past, there were groups that had kind of started on their own and came to us and said, hey, we want to do what you're doing. And it is important that the people that have a similar, our name, Decriminalize Psilocybin, and then a city or area, is that you are under our umbrella as far as ethics and morals in our kind of what we're bringing into city councils. And that might change a little bit here and there, but as they ask us to change, but we want to kind of avoid people using our name and using other values and under our name. And whatever that might be, it might be like decriminalizing all drugs or something like that. That's just not under this specific name, but we're gonna be part of a bigger plant medicine alliance. And there are groups that are trying to decriminalize everything or decriminalize nature. And a lot of these groups are really doing a lot in the community, or they have grants written and they have budgets and they have events and they reach a lot of people. And we realized that at this conference last week, this is an international conference, and the most of the people weren't from Michigan either. So yeah, sorry, my mind's going too many places here. So yeah, there's people doing this already, and there's people that, when you start a new group, there will be kind of a, whatever the title will be, a director maybe of your org. But then most likely y'all will need a treasurer, some type of secretary. Actually, in some cases, sometimes you can just go right to city council and you have the relationship to do this. But sometimes you need a small budget to hold events in your area to raise awareness, or to bring awareness to other events that are going on. So we will be helping really organize this in a way that's been successful. So it might seem kind of daunting right now, but you will have all the resources you need and many more people as well. Okay, I don't want to get too in the weeds either here with what past what's works, what hasn't, until we're kind of we have a lot to digest, I know.
Yep.
There's
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, we sent out a survey. So if you haven't completed the survey yet, we really appreciate that. We're going to be taking more of a deep dive into the survey responses when we get more of them coming in. So really, we want to hear more from y'all, because this is your movement too. These are your communities, and we want to support you, but adapt to different needs for different folks. So any other questions for any of us, or just in general about DPMI? All right. Well, it's getting late, so we appreciate you spending your Wednesday evening with us.
Good luck with Aunt Betty.
Yes, yeah. And does anyone have any last bit to close, and then I'll kind of close us out here? Anyone want to say more? Okay, great. Y'all have been great. I can't wait to hear you guys talk more, all of you. You lovely ladies. Okay, we'll definitely go into a little bit more of the summary of this other survey that we got from y'all when we have more time next time. Thank you all seriously so much. This really, really inspires me. The people that showed up, it might seem like a small meeting for a statewide meeting, but this is a complete grassroots movement. And so this is the very beginning. So y'all are very, very awesome for being here. And I see a lot of people I recognize. I see some people that are newer names, but I can't wait to give y'all more of a chance to speak and tell your stories a little bit, and let us know how you can contribute. If there's anything you need us to know urgently also, or like that you think would help us in the short term, you can also reach out to our email. And thank you, y'all. Continue to go out there and help people and spread this message. And I want to reaffirm that we are here for you. And we saw at this conference last week, there are so many different groups that are trying to change things right now. And again, we we have to have a soft approach for everyone that is here. That like we are all brothers and sisters. We are all humans. We all have to be here for each other. And social media and regular media is trying to get people to fight. They're creating false scarcity. They're getting people angry at each other. They're trying to divide and conquer. And so there's people that are standing up against that, and we are ready to fight back against authoritarianism. And we're not going to be pulling punches. We're going to be doing things strategically and surgically and with resources and with a lot of support behind us. So I am really, really happy that everyone's here. I'm proud. I'm inspired. I keep getting goosebumps. And I can't say it enough. I love y'all, and I'm really excited to keep going with this thing.